Hello and welcome. My name is Ato Boyan and you are on Couples Drive, where married couples share their stories from when they met, courted, got married and beyond. This week we're picking up from where we left off with Mr. and Mrs. Crabbe, the renowned marriage counseling couple, to share with us their views on marriage counseling. This is part 2 of my ride with them. Take a look. So what would you do if you've already gone through your marriage process and maybe one of these conditions is not met? How do you rectify that?
You go back and do the right thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
We've actually gone with a couple. They got married on the Saturday. On the Monday morning, we actually put them in our car and took them to the office of the registrar. And they went and said their I do's before him all over again.
All over again?
Yep.
Yeah.
And they got
because
the
they
certificate.
got married on Saturday in a church.
And the church gave them a certificate.
The church gave them a certificate, but we looked at it and said, this church is not registered.
Wow.
And even though the priest, the pastor who married them, is licensed to marry,
That church certificate, you can't take it anywhere. So you have to go to the registrar generals and do that. So we had to take them there. And for them to go through the vows again and get the certificate, which is the valid one. I used to make wedding gowns and dress brides, so there are fun questions I ask. Somebody came sewing a wedding gown. Where are you going to have your wedding? He told me the place. I said, is that place registered? I don't think it's registered. She said, oh, people have their weddings. I said, that doesn't mean it is registered. You need to find out. So she went, found out, and true, it wasn't registered. So they have to change the venue, They had to actually go, because that is what was on the invitation and everything. So what they did was that they went somewhere which was registered to have the wedding and the vows, and then they came there for the reception.
Interesting. I was just about to ask you, so what do you do when you have all these preparations and invitations sent out already? Wow.
Oh, yeah.
well, what you can do, I mean, yeah, you can, let's say here in the States, you've chosen this fancy place, what destination wedding, all this kind. You could simply go to City Hall or, wherever you can have a legal marriage, fulfill those conditions, so legally you are married.
Okay.
And then you can
Go
invite,
to your venue.
somebody, your friend, to come and lead you through the vows.
Would you need a witness
for the
over
cameras?
there for that?
Yes.
It depends. Usually there are 2 witnesses.
Okay.
Usually 2 witnesses. Yes.
That's interesting.
So yeah, so you can come and have the other one in front of everybody, and yeah, we're doing this, but we're covered legally.
The fanfare. The one I call the fanfare.
Unfair. What is your opinion on that? Your thought on this, fanfare, as you put it?
Yep.
The wedding,
because
with the limo.
Yeah.
With
cars.
the 7 or 10 bridesmaids.
Is it a
groomsmen.
bit, of a diversion, or is it a bit distant from what the concept of marriage is all about?
It is a diversion.
It is, right?
Yes. That is not the marriage. So it depends on the individual. Everybody has an idea how they want their wedding to be. Whether you had a 10-tier cake, a 1-tier cake, or no cake, whether you had 7 bridesmaids or no bridesmaid, whether you had flower girls, pages, those are not part of the wedding. The vows, that is all you need. You don't need even to wear a white, flowing gown.
You don't.
You don't. You
So
can
where did we
actually
get all this from?
Oh,
We took them on.
we gradually we took them on from many people, and we decide what we want to do. Matter of fact, this past week just a week ago, the royal wedding.
Right.
She didn't have a bridesmaid or maid of honor.
Right.
And if they can do that, why can't anybody do it?
That's a good question.
Yes. You know, everybody has their own variations, but we want a show. You know, somebody, we even compare, you know, and we are not the only, parents are part of it, friends are part of it. You know, they say things like, oh, so and so had a wedding and they did this, and even they don't have much money. How about us? You know, this person had such a wedding and she doesn't even have a college degree, and look at the wedding she had. How about you? You know, so we put ourselves into all kinds of trouble. We want to do something that nobody has done before, and sometimes we put ourselves in debt. You can have your wedding in what I'm wearing right now. Stand before, you know, the priest or the judge, say your vows, and you are married. And, you know, it doesn't change anything. And you can have a 22 karat gold, 18 karat gold, or a 14 karat gold. They are all wedding rings. There is no difference. It doesn't matter if you paid 50,000 for your ring or 1,000 for your ring. Wow. It is still married.
And the fact of the matter is, everyone has an idea of how they want their wedding to be. So it's up to the couple. And we also see even the wedding day as a statement to everyone who comes. The people who have weddings and they say, we're not having a reception. In lieu of gifts, you know, donate to this such and such a place. That's what they do, you know. So they get everybody coming. Yep, there's no reception, but, you know, in lieu of having a reception, we are donating the money for the reception to this cause. And we invite you also, in lieu of presents, donate to them as well.
Okay. And it's what you can afford.
That's it.
You see, if somebody can afford an elaborate wedding, we don't have a problem with that. But if you don't have the money, don't force yourself to do something that will put you in debt. And for some people, they even, maybe somebody had a wedding and it was so elaborate, and it was not from their own pockets, you know, maybe from friends, somebody decides to do this for you and all that, and then
grandparents,
yes, or aunties, you know, uncles, they did all that. You want to do that, and it has to come from your own pocket. You can't do it.
Wow.
And if you do it, you will be in debt. Some people have been in debt for 10, 20 years because of their wedding.
Or they fight.
And then you begin
Through
to fight.
the marriage.
Yes.
Wow.
So it depends on the individual. But I always say that keep it as simple as it can be.
Okay. Now, we want to move on to very, you know, disturbing or rather interesting, I should say. What if you're getting married to a young man or a young woman and your parents does not approve? Your parents say, you know, well, we don't approve of this guy simply because of this and that, A, B, and C. Or maybe there is this issue of differences in faith and belief. How do you go about it?
Those are, you know, two different things. You know?
Right.
Let's take the parental consent.
Okay.
It is very important. Parental consent is very important. If they don't approve of the person you are marrying, whether it's the woman or the man, they must have reasons. So you need to talk with them. Find out from them why they don't want you to marry this guy or this lady, and talk with them. They may have their ideas, maybe the tribe where the person comes from, and those you can work out gradually. So you need to, for some of them, you have to take your time. You know, maybe you want to get married in 6 months' time, but you may have to wait till a year and get things settled. You need the parental consent. It's very important that they will come to understand and agree and, you know, accept that, yes, okay, you can get married. It's very important. When it comes to the faith, difference in faith, that is very serious. For a Christian, we are talking as Christians.
Okay.
The Bible says the two do not walk together except they agree. So if you are not agreed in your faith, why are you working together? If the person doesn't believe what you believe, it's not going to work. You will have problems for the rest of your life. So you have to agree in that. You must have the same faith.
But maybe they want to do that and with the expectation that somebody, one may change or.
It doesn't
Well,
work that way.
They can decide to do that and be prepared for the consequences. Because it's easy to say, oh, we love each other, and all that. But let me take a Christian and a Buddhist. I'm just going to be that specific. So the Christian wants to go to church, the Buddhist wants to go to the temple. How do they worship? Oh, he can have his and I can have mine. It's love that binds us together. Okay, that's great. But so how do they pray together as a couple? We're encouraged to pray together as a couple.
So who do you pray to?
So how do you pray to? Will you even be able to pray together? And who are you praying to? The Christian believes I should pray through Christ. Is the Buddhist wife, husband going to say, oh yeah, I agree that we pray through Christ? you see, that fundamental difference can hit the oneness of the couple. And we do not deny that people do marry for love, that they're really deeply in love. But you just have to know that, yes, there are certain things you will not be able to do together. And for us, we believe being able to worship together is an integral part of one's life. If we're both Muslims, we're both Buddhists, we're both Christians, yeah. So people say, are you saying you cannot marry? I'm not saying you can't. But I'm saying you have to understand what it comes with. You just have to understand what it comes with. And for Christians, the Bible is clear. That's why you hear it taught, do not be unequally yoked with an unbeliever. Okay? So whether the person loves you to death or not, that's not all that matters.
You have to stay alive.
So that's why we point that out, and it's important. Viviane said something about parental consent. You said maybe they mentioned one or two of this. Sometimes, especially as younger people, we're so in love. We usually like to say we're so in love that we don't hear or see properly. But true love hears all things, sees all things, and still works through them.
True love sees all things and
hears all things. Yeah. True love is never blind. True love is never blind. True love is, I see that you are handicapped, but I don't regard you as a handicapped person. I regard you as a whole person with whom I can commit, to whom I can commit my life. Others may see you as handicapped and not good enough for them. But for me, no. Even though I see handicap, I see beyond handicap. That's true love. True love says, you are rude. I love you too much to allow you to remain a rude person. So I will talk about it. I hear the rudeness and no, you cannot continue that way. That's not how you treat people. Because it will continue in the marriage. You see. And so parents, friends, others may see things that we may not see because we are so much in love. And when parents begin to give, those things, no, you can't marry. Yeah, let's find out, why are they saying we can't marry?
So what if you overrule that objection? And
Oh, you can overrule. You are an adult.
Are there any implications that you've probably witnessed or seen in the past, or in your
Well,
account?
when you overrule all those things, especially things that they have really told you, and you overrule, when they happen in the marriage, you're going to, sometimes you don't know what to do. You can't go back to them to complain to them because we told you already.
Right.
But, you know, there are cases where the parents, you know, after everything, they tell you that, well, you are still our child. We are here for you. If there's anything, you can come to us. So that way, you are confident that you can go.
But have the parents been wrong in certain times?
Oh, yeah, sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah, because they don't want you to marry from this race or that tribe, that ethnic group, that country, you know. And that's all the reason.
Oh, okay.
You know, they just don't like people from there, you know. Or maybe they might point out something they think they've seen. You know, he's arrogant. Or she's arrogant because the person is really confident.
Or they can just think that, you know, maybe for a girl, they think that this guy is not rich enough. We wanted you to marry a rich man.
Yes.
You know, that's about it. That's not a good reason, but hey, or for some of the men, you know, they think that, oh, this lady is not beautiful enough. We think that you could have gotten a more beautiful lady or from a better family by their standards, whatever they mean by that.
Yeah.
You know, they have all kinds of reasons, which, you know, you can work out. That is what needs the patience.
Yes.
You know, for you to take your time and talk with them and let them understand, you know.
Right. Is it good to go into marriage or any relationship with expectations, or to expect what to get out of it, or to see or get from the other person?
Everybody has expectations. I heard somebody say recently that don't go into marriage with expectations. That is not making you a real human being. Everybody has expectations. It's good to go into the marriage with expectations, but talk about your expectations with each other. That is, you are expecting something. I don't know what you are expecting. How do I work with that? So talk about your expectations to each other. That's the real thing to do.
Right.
And if you don't have any expectations, then whatever happens is good. But it may not be good.
Right.
You know, and we may not call it expectations, but every one of us has some plan in their mind about their life, career, and all that. Well, shouldn't you know those thoughts about the person to whom you are committing the rest of your life? You know, I want to be an astronaut, but I'm marrying a woman who wants me to be a stay-at-home dad. So how do I become the astronaut?
Wow.
And I didn't know this is what she's expecting, but she's going to hold me to it. So, you know, it's not so much even holding each other accountable to it, but being able to help each other be the best they can be, if we know what they're aiming to strive at. Because part of committing our lives to each other is, my life is going to be your life, is going to be my life. So, you know, if our lives are going to be so intertwined, even though we're still going to be individuals, yes, with all our gifts, abilities, and uniqueness, shouldn't we share these things too? Even before we make that commitment? You know, and like Viviane put it so well, I'm committed to you for the rest of my life, your life, and I did not know this is what you expected of me. How am I going to fulfill it when I'm even handicapped in terms of fulfilling it? Wow. I don't have the ability to do it. And if I knew this was what you are expecting in marriage, I may not have proposed to you, or I may not have accepted your proposal. Or in doing so, I would have talked about this, and then the two of us would have put our heads together as to how we can make this work. And that's where we as counselors find some of the problems with couples. He had an expectation, she had an expectation. They never talked about it. And somehow they felt once they get married, everything will work out. And so he's expecting her to do X, she's expecting him to do Y. Nobody's doing what the other expects because they don't know. And yet, what are they fighting about? You don't do this, you don't do X. But you also don't do Y. Why are you asking me I should do that? Because that's what a husband does. Because that's what a wife does. Who said? Well, that's what I expect in my wife. Oh, the expect word?
Now, going back to the question or the subject of, being honest, open with the person you are going to get married to.
Yes.
There are some times where, as you indicated earlier, the girl or the guy has a child, and the partner is telling them to, send them to maybe their mom or their dad or their parents, so that they can start afresh. And you feel this is your blood and you want them to be present. How do you talk about that? Or do you agree to send your child away?
It's love me, love my dog. So if
This
you
time,
love
my
me,
child.
you love my child. We talk about that. Why should they go to my parents? My parents are not their parents. They're grandparents. So why should someone else take care of them? It's all part of the package. When you are coming in, if you have agreed to marry me with my children or child, then you have agreed that we will take care of that child together. And they don't have to go anywhere. That's why you need to talk about these things. You don't hide it from each other. Let's talk about it. If you're not prepared to marry someone with a child, then you can go your way, because it will bring problems later on.
And that's making a statement to, if one person will tell, the partner, no, I think I wouldn't want your child to live with us when we're married. So what do? This is a part of my life. This is a part of who I am. Should I delete that from my life? Do I see that child once a month? And, if I have to go to the school to talk with them, are you going to stand with me, or it's my child? It's a huge statement to say, no, you're the one I love. I don't want to have anything to do with your child. We've heard people say, oh, it's somebody else's child. But hey,
why should I raise somebody else?
but it's my child too. I have a stake in that child. So it's not only somebody else's. And what needs to be discussed is how the parenting will be done. Maybe the child might spend some days or weeks, weekends away from us, or all that needs to be discussed. How often, will that child be around? And it's not simply, no, I don't want to have anything to do with that child. Ooh, wow. That's a bold statement, and you're telling me something about yourself.
Wow. I'm going to get on the subject of divorce in a little bit, but what if you've got into an age range or a certain level, right? And there's this expectation that you have to get married, and you've gone past that stage. That is where or when the pressure actually mounts the most. How do you handle that? Because there is this thought running through your mind that if I don't take this guy, what if he goes and nobody comes, or what if she goes and nobody comes? How do you keep your self-esteem and believe that somebody will come?
Well, the first point is knowing yourself and loving yourself. Knowing that I am not just a blob of DNA energized and walking around the earth. I am somebody of value, of worth. If you are a follower of Jesus, Jesus has died for me. God has deposited His Spirit in me as a guarantee. You are somebody, you know, and your existence does not depend on your getting married to somebody else. Where's the somebody you don't even want or love? And granted, sometimes we can make mistakes and think we know everything and lose out because we're not seeing the value in someone who's being introduced to us. Regardless, the final decision is ours. And that's why we need to give ourselves time to get to know whoever it is. And you remember, Viviane said, that's why we don't start the relationship with marriage. Because then it becomes very difficult. You know, do I tell my favorite uncle or aunt that I'm not going to marry the person they introduced? But if he knows that, well, we're starting by getting to know each other, then it's not so much a shock to them that we've decided to go our separate ways. You know, it's not like I'm being bad or disrespectful to them. And I think in one instance, we even talked with the parents on behalf of the child, so it wasn't that young a child. You know, and the question we asked the mother was, would you rather your daughter got married simply because she's married and you are happy as the parent, your work is done, or you want your daughter to be married and to be happy and fulfilled in that marriage? And it changed the mother's orientation. Because, yeah, I want her to be married, but I'm sure, given her age, she knew about many unhappily married people. And did not want her daughter to be a statistic, you see. But their parents will say, oh, these young people of today, they don't know any better. We have to tell them. After all, our parents chose for us and we are still married 40 years after. What do they know? But okay, you can say that, but ultimately it's the person's decision. And some parents have threatened with disowning and don't call me, don't come to my funeral, you know. But it's even interesting, some have even boycotted the wedding when the children finally choose somebody they want. But they have ultimately come round to realize that, oh, my son made a good choice. Oh, my daughter didn't mess up at all. You know, which is why we say counseling is also important for the couple, because they need to start life knowing they are on probation. They have to prove themselves, you know, to the parents who thought this man is not good for my daughter. So, we talk with the young man, says, if you should really be thanking God you had this pressure to start with, right? So now you know you have to prove yourself. So don't give them a chance to think, yeah, we were right, he can't look after our daughter. But prove to them that yes, you are the man for their daughter.
And now moving on to divorce, it is something that nobody really encourages, and nobody gets into marriage with the expectation of getting divorced. But I'm sure as marriage counselors, you've had to witness people go through that phase. What are your thoughts on divorce, or what normally leads to divorce, and what would you advise people going through that phase?
Divorce is never a good thing. It is never. It affects both people in different ways. What we normally do is to talk them through it, find out the reasons why there are problems in the marriage and how you can work together so that you can avoid divorce, because it affects, especially when they are children, it affects them in so many ways. So it's never a good thing. Nobody says that we divorced and everything is going well. There's trouble in so many ways, and sometimes forever. it never ends. So we try to, talk both people out of divorce, to work together so that things don't go that way. Generally, things that bring divorce, then I think it's selfishness, mainly.
Okay.
When we want our way and we don't want to think of the other person. That is the main thing that ends up in divorce. So if we can be selfless, if we can think a little bit of the other person, what can I do to make life easier for you? What can I do to make life a little happier for the other person, and not thinking of myself alone? That is what happens.
And I think on that point, I think I was listening to one of your podcasts or one of your sessions a couple of months ago, and I think Mrs Crabbe, you had mentioned that a lot of things that leads to divorces actually start even before the courtship or even before the marriage. But those are things that are ignored. If those are things that are known, why do people actually go ahead and marry?
That is you see, it beats me, it beats you. That's what, I don't understand. That you have heard this person say it all out, and yet you believe that they will change. You cannot change a human being. You see, only God changes the human being. So if you
can pray about it and expect some miracle, some change, God can change the person.
You know what? It still comes to the selfishness. You are believing that this person will change, even when God is showing you everything about the person. People have ulterior motives. Sometimes, there's a reason. Somebody else is marrying because you have all the money, and they will be comfortable. So they pretend that they love you. Somebody is marrying because of the status you have. They want to be husband of so and so, or wife of so and so, and so they pretend. People have all kinds of reasons why they want to get married. That is the reason why you need God's wisdom, to see through some of those things. Sometimes you need to pray that God will open your eyes to see and reason, grant you discernment, that you can reason through some of these things and say, why do I think about this? Let me research a little bit about it and see how it goes, and listen. Sometimes people are even talking, telling you that look sharp, and you think that they envy me. They don't want me to marry this guy. They don't want me to marry this lady. You are not looking. And then after you get married, you see that the trouble is there.
So ideally, you don't, really, or if you've never had to counsel anybody or advise anybody to seek divorce, no matter what the circumstances, you believe it can be salvaged?
Yes, we believe it can be salvaged if both people are willing to work. Unless they are not willing to work.
Okay.
There are people who they just want out of the marriage, and that one you can't change the person's mind. You can talk to the person and tell them, you need to think through it, and if they still want it, that is their choice, However, we have people whom we have talked to, who, told them to think about it very well. It's not going to be a good thing. Divorce is not good, and they still determined to do that. And, we hear later on they've divorced. And then they turn around and say they've regretted. And want to get back together. Or maybe one of them realizes that I really made a mistake, and they say things that I should have listened to you better. I don't know what you were doing when I was talking. People do that too,
So how does one deal with that phase of divorce, like if somebody were to go through that, how do you counsel those people? How do you help them to go through it, and how does one actually find love again?
Well, let me take this aspect. You know, first of all, we don't actually tell people to divorce. You know, we don't say counsel them. Oh, where you've got to is a dead end. I think you should divorce. No, that's not our place. You know, ours is to do what Moses did to the Israelites. We've said before you this day, life and death.
Okay.
You know, you choose life. You know, you choose the death of your marriage. You know, yep, we recognize you can't continue limping along or even suffering along. Sometimes there's emotional abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse. Definitely, you know, the couple should think in terms of separating to work out, you know, those issues. And emotional abuse can also be a hidden but very deep hurt abuse, you know, so because that destroys the self-esteem of the person. And how do we work with somebody through it? First of all, whoever is abused, if there is abuse, we secure the person. In other words, you help the person get hold of themselves.
Okay.
Because they usually, if they really feel abused, they're thinking they're nobody, they're not worthy, you know, they might even be thinking of harming themselves. And we need to help them do that. And this is where the churches, you know, other bodies that are concerned with the family or individuals can come in to really help, because sometimes the person needs a place to stay. You know, we'll need food, we'll need to get to work the next day and need somebody to help them out. But so those are, we walk them through, you know, what's going to happen. If you say you're divorcing, okay, where will you live? Are you staying in the house, or till when? Or when are you going to divorce? You know, okay, if they have kids, what are arrangements for the kids? If, you know, all of those things. You mentioned liabilities. How are you going to handle them? You know, it's not just two people. What about your families? If they've been married under customary law, the two families have to come in too. You can't simply say, oh yeah, we're married in court, so we're just going to the judge, you know, to do it, or we're getting our lawyers to do it. Your families have to come in, you know. And we've had situations where, you know, we've divorced. And we say, well, what did your families do about it? Did they accept the divorce? No. If your families didn't, then you're still married. You know, under the ordinance or the laws of US, wherever, you may not be married, but customarily you're still married. You remember I said sometimes people marry 3 times.
Right.
You can't cut one and then it invalidates everything. You know, so that's something we walk people through to know. No, it has to end here. Yep, customary. How did you end it? Just picking up the phone whilst you are in the US or Europe to call your in-laws to say, that's it, you know, I'm leaving your daughter or your son. That doesn't mean, you know, the
marriage is not.
Yeah, especially if it's under customary law, because there are regulations how you do that too. So we walk people through all of that. And still in the process, seeing if there are any pointers that we could work on, you know, to help them get back together. But where there's physical or emotional abuse, it becomes very difficult to get the person to think positively about the abuser. And that's some, you know, we like to focus more on the abuser, but we realize often the abusers make themselves unavailable. You know, they're not interested, you know.
So how long do you recommend that people take? You know, people who have gone through that kind of abuse or that kind of marital, you know, issues. For instance, divorce. How long should they take to heal themselves before getting themselves into the love?
Hey, welcome back.
That was part 2 of my ride with Mr. and Mrs. Crabbe. I hope you learned something from them as usual. That was a lot of information. I'll see you next week with part 3 of my ride with them. Until then, let's keep love alive. Bye.